Afternoon, everybody. I'm Gabe Lloyd. This is Daniel Holloway, and we are here at day number 2 of St. Francis Tulsa Tough here at the FC Tulsa Arts District Criterium. A fantastic night of racing last night at Blue Dome kicked us off for a fantastic omnium here in Tulsa, Oklahoma for the Super Bowl of Criteriums. We're going to take a look at last night's recap right now. Kendall Ryan did a fantastic job staying patient. She did an amazing job staying up front and letting her team do all of that work because there was a huge breakaway threat in the middle of the race with Grace Arlinson and Bryony Botha. The two of them adding up to 35 seconds of their advantage. At one point, Daniel and I each thought that they had that thing locked up, but big turns at the front by Lauren Stevens etched out 16 seconds in one lap, and then from there it was Chloe from Siniska that edged out the rest of that break, and it was none other than the queen of crits herself, Kendall Ryan, who was able to finish off and repeat her feat at the McNally's Group Blue Dome Criterium once again. But tonight, we are here at the FC Tulsa Arts District Criterium, and this is a completely different course. Daniel, walk us through our 6-turn Criterium course tonight.
Yeah, like you said, 6 corners out of corner 3, up the hill next to the Sound Pony, over the top, and down the hill. You know, traditionally it's a headwind. Tonight it's a headwind. Makes it very, very tricky to time your sprint correctly. If you're low on riders and you start your lead out too early, there could be a swarm right in the bottom half. So it's getting the timing perfect, launching your sprinter into that final corner. There's so much momentum and it's so fast. There's not a ton of time to come around to the finish line. And
even with those different course dynamics, the Queen of Crits has proven herself here in the past. In 2024, Kendall Ryan was leveraged her teammates at the Legion of Los Angeles to claim both days. And she's here in the pink in 2024, taking the win right here in the FC Tulsa Arts District Criterium, and she is looking to repeat that feat. We had the chance to talk to Kendall this afternoon, right before today. Let's jump into that and see what Kendall has to say about tonight's Criterium.
It was super stressful, but I just had to be patient and trust my teammates and trust that everyone had the common goal of the sprint. I think tonight's going to be similar, but I think there might be a chance for a breakaway, but I'm prepared and I'll be heightened senses, so I'm ready to go.
That's Kendall Ryan. She is now your leader of the St. Francis Tulsa Tough Omnium standings. With one night of racing down, our Omnium reflects results from last night, but to notably take a look who's second, third, fourth, and so on. Alexis Magner, her sister, in second. Cassie Hickey, your U23 national champion, in third. Odette Lynch from Australia in fourth. Andrea Sear, a ACC champion in the past, in fifth. Josephine Palaquin from LA Sweat in sixth. Erica Carney, the legend, in seventh. Lauren Stevens, who had a fantastic impact on the race last night, finishing out in eighth. Aline Seitz for Butcher Box getting it in ninth, and Riley McMullen, your ACC sprint champion from last year, getting herself into the mix. We're now calling up our top seeded riders here at the FC Tulsa Arts District Criterium to kick off the second night of racing here at the 2025 St. Francis Tulsa Tough. If you're just joining us, welcome to the broadcast. Again, my name is Gabe Lloyd, and I have 21-time national champion Daniel Holloway at my side, the expert in all things bike racing, to help make sure that we are calling it like it is. But if you are joining us on the internet, welcome. Feel free to chime in on the YouTube channel or to hit us up. We are here to make sure that you guys know what is happening. So don't be shy, but also be nice, because we are out here calling all those shots. Big thanks to everybody that tuned in last night and helped us out. We did hear you. We do appreciate you all. And we're going to see you here. Now, this is your call-ups happening right now. As you can see, our top 10 from last night getting themselves recognized on the start-finish line. These women are going to have a big advantage here on this course, I believe, because the course tonight, as Daniel was articulating, is quite different than in McNally's Group Blue Dome.
Yeah, you hit the hill with the tailwind out of corner 3. So it's a more elevation change today consistently. It's going to add tired legs from yesterday, especially with how hard the women raced last night. There's just probably a little more fatigue than this group might be used to into this one. And if the aggressive racing continues like it did last night, it's prime for a breakaway. More riders are going to be on their toes, so I don't think it's going to go away quite as easy until that right mix gets away and the peloton looks for that rest.
I'm very curious to see how Legion responds tonight. I think they had to really gamble and wait for this race to come together in a way. They really benefited from the work that Lauren Stevens and Sinisco with Chloe Patrick did very late in the race.
Yeah, I had went on the Legion coffee ride this morning, so I got to talk to both men and women teams about their races. And the women especially, there was a crash that we didn't see. That's what we saw, part of that chaos in the pit that we talked about. We didn't actually see the crash. But both Checkers riders were caught out in it, had to do a lot of work, but also Holly Breck and Laurel from Legion were also caught behind it. So that's why we did see Kendall isolated for that little bit of time and doing that work.
Okay. Wow.
Some LaSweat riders were caught up in it as well. So that did kind of throw a wrench in the plan, so to speak, and why Kendall was isolated for a small amount of time. But we did see Holly Breck come back, in the last lap and do a massive turn to help Kendall in terms of just outright closing the gap.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how tonight plays out. This is a very different course overall, and it looks like you guys can see us here tonight. How about that? We're in the Zico broadcast tent. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Gabe, that's Daniel. We are right here. So again, you guys are welcome to chime in and help us out. But big thanks to Zico for sponsoring our broadcast booth. And don't forget about Quick Trip. They're more than just a gas station. They also make live streams happen here at St. Francis Tulsa Tough. We're in the first lap of our pro women's event tonight. Legion of Los Angeles already on the front. Laurel Stevens looks like they're just trying to control this. Now, I feel a little bit of wind. We just had a little bit of a gust in here that blew some papers around. So talk to us a little bit about what you felt in the 1-2 race that you just did here this afternoon.
Yeah, again, it's on tradition. The wind is very consistent here. Tailwind up the climb, headwind down from corner 5 to corner 6. And it's not consistent. It's definitely kind of on and off. So it's one of the things the riders are going to have to kind of pay attention to. And there's no rhyme or reason to the wind. It's Mother Nature. But just understand how it feels out there when it is breezy, how much effort it is to kind of go against that.
So right now, looks like we're all staying together right now, as it were. It's hard to tell from these camera shots just what the effort is, right? So while we can sit here and armchair quarterback what's going on, they're going easy, etc. Oftentimes we're very wrong in those assessments. I think that the rides that are occurring right now, there's still big efforts being put in, because as we make this right-hand turn to start to come up by Sound Pony and the big ride after party, that's actually a very challenging, very distinct lift of the elevation here.
Yeah, and right where that shadow is, it kicks up again. So you're coming out of that corner, there's elevation, and then it gets a little bit steeper. Basically where we see that shadow, obviously that's going to change throughout the race, but it definitely ramps up and over the top.
And now we're coming up around the top of the course. Field still all together. We're on lap number 2. We're just 3.5 minutes into our pro women's race here tonight. This is the second night of racing. Again, last night we were in Blue Dome, which is the McNally's Group Blue Dome. Criterium kicks off our Omnium. There's 3 days of racing at the St. Francis Tulsa Tough. And a lot of the riders are very focused on the Omnium results. So as we highlighted that, we put that graphic up in the open to represent what our top 10 riders are. But there was one notable that was not in that list. Not to necessarily negatively call it out, Daniel, but Olivia Cummins, unable to even finish the race last night.
Yeah, spoke to Nicola Cranmer from the owner of the team. Olivia crashed at Collegiate Nationals, I think, and is still slightly recovering, or had a time off to come from that. So she's not here on peak form, unfortunately. So, I think that's what we saw kind of last night with how hard that race kind of ended up being. So we're not seeing peak Olivia Cummins, but hopefully she's, ever professional, maybe needed a day in the legs to to come out.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely thought that Olivia would be one to watch. We thought that Olivia would be one to watch in order to affect the overall dynamic, but now with her feeling the effects of a crash at Collegiate Nationals, that dynamic, of course, will now shift. So she's notably absent, but we also saw some new names in those top tens. Josephine Pellegrin from LA Sweat was mixing in. She was following Chloe Patrick across, and she was able to get herself into the mix. Now she did lose some positioning late in that sprint. Once it really opened up full gas, she gapped off a smidge and finished in 4th overall.
Yeah, she didn't quite fight for the wheel like she should have in those closing meters. She needed to be more aggressive to hold the position, because I believe she was pretty much right there with Kendall on the wheel coming out of 6.
Yeah.
And just left the door open for people to sneak underneath.
Weather here today at Tulsa, Oklahoma, it's 84 degrees, sunny with a little bit of clouds. It feels like 90 because it's 57% humidity, but for all intents and purposes, a very nice day here in Tulsa. I have memories of being here last year. It was like 110 degrees and sweating through the tie. But tonight is just very, very nice. I think that these conditions will be very good. And notably, I think, Daniel, you talked last night about how when you're on the start line and you're just like overheating before you're even moving, that can really change the dynamic of the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And look at that. Olivia Cummins, I believe, took that preem that we just saw there. So she's back in action. She's getting those legs opened up. But, for those two riders, her and Riley McMullen, the narrative's going to shift. Olivia's just going to start doing as much as she can, monitoring the race, and let Riley do as little as possible and set her up for the finish. But, funny enough, we just mentioned Olivia, that she wasn't on her top game, but she comes out here and takes a preem lap 6 minutes into this race.
So Olivia, maybe it's a shift in tactics for that crew, right? So knowing that maybe she can't go quite as deep or as long into the race, they're going to reshuffle a bit. It's just the two of them with Olivia and Riley McMullen. So a little bit of preem hunting.
Yeah, just go win some money.
Yeah.
That's what you're here for.
And so Riley will be certainly one to watch. She has her eyes on some victory results in this race. She thinks that she can do it. When we got a chance to speak to Olivia at Ride with the Pros the other night, and Olivia was articulating how the two of them had their eyes on getting some victories at this stage and tomorrow night. So they actually weren't quite as optimistic about Blue Dome, but of course they didn't count themselves out. Let's take a look at the screen right now. In the neon top, that's going to be the Techers kit, and you've got Meg Barker. She's a two-time world champion and Olympic silver medalist, and she's racing with us with Techers. It's really cool to have Techers coming across from Great Britain to represent that squad of Alec Briggs. Last night they factored into a bit of the lead out in our women's race. They didn't quite get the result they were hoping for.
Yeah, they were involved in that crash, so they were behind that split. It was at a very weird time. It was kind of right at that 8-7 to go. So it's one of those things where you err on the side of caution to just close the gap instead of trying to go to the pit to get that free lap. So that's what happened. The big gap opened up from that crash, and with where it was in the race, they just decided to close it down. And I think that was a big amount of energy spent to do that they just enough to take him out of the final. And
it was late, so late,
yep,
that he just nowhere to recover in that moment in time, because that was when the big ramp was occurring. That was the moment when Chloe Patrick and Josephine Pellegrin were bridging across, and then the field was responding to it and trying to shut that gap back down. So many things were occurring, and meanwhile Meg and Josie were in arrears. So tonight, hopefully a little bit of a reset of dynamic for them, and maybe we'll be talking about them near the end of the race. Look at the pink shorts up near the front.
Yeah, Erica Carney just keeping herself safe. Really probably just want to stay as much out of the washing machine as she can, and just become a familiar facet in that top 10. So as the other riders move around, see there she's in that bright kit. She'll soon become a familiar body that everybody can kind of trust and not fight her too much, because she's always going to be there. So she's just trying to kind of set her place in the top 10, top 20 there, so she doesn't have to fight as much as a single rider.
Now we're coming downhill right now, and you were talking earlier about how there's a headwind on the downhill.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about how that affects the lead up to the sprint, the setup to the sprint.
Yeah, so when you're in the front coming down, I think in the men's race we were on average 50k an hour in the Cat 1-2 race. When it was going really fast, maybe 55. But if you're doing the lead out, you're not getting the help of the downhill and a tailwind or no wind. You have the wind in the face. So if you expend the energy at the top to do the lead out, you're gonna fade. And because the hill and you're taking a run, there's a lot of opportunity to take the run. Just the rider slowing down in front of you, so you can definitely kind of see a swarm potential happen if you don't get it right, or you don't have enough bodies coming out of that top corner. So
you have to wait here, and that's but the road is wide, so you can wait because you can get around.
Yeah, and if you're in the front, right, like the waiting is a ramp. Is when you come out of that top corner, it is a long acceleration versus just a big sprint, and then fatigue sets in. Is you want to kind of accelerate out of the corner and do this big, on the track we call it doing a razor, right? Just slowly increase the pace, up and up, basically never slowing down. But yeah, if you're in the back, it's okay to leave a bike length and have something to kind of run into and really monitor what's happening in front of you. So when that person in front of it does slow down, you're not immediately affected by it. You can have a bike length, maybe a half bike length to kind of see that deceleration, and then you have somewhere to go, whether it be left or right, and you just kind of take that slingshot.
So you always give yourself a little bit of room. Shout out to Zico for sponsoring our broadcast booth this year for the St. Francis Tulsa Tough. And thank you for joining us here. We're about 11 minutes into our pro women's race, and so far we're all together. But this is about the time last night when we started to see a little bit of a split. This is the moment, I believe, where we started to see Bryony Botha and Grace Arlinson start to separate themselves, and we're already now starting to see the lift thanks to Fount Cycling and Lauren Stevens up at the front. You can tell she's got the feed helmet on. Makes it easy to call her out.
Yeah, we've been seeing some preams to get some pace changes and increase in speed, and it was definitely maybe a little slower start, but we're starting to see riders start to get aggressive, make their moves. Fount is riding a little more of an aggressive race today than we saw yesterday, with more of their riders and not just Andrea Sear.
Also, big thanks to Don Thornton Auto Group for bringing out the fast cars. Daniel and I are going to continue to try and let us drive these cars here. They have
mostly the Blackwing.
Yeah, they have a Cadillac Blackwing that they're going to be touring out right here. They got this Audi. Hopefully they have an RS wagon for us too to drive around.
Good comparison.
Yeah, we would need to do an honest test of it.
Exactly.
Really, if you can't smoke the tires, don't even bother.
Exactly.
But big thanks to Don Thornton Auto Group for supporting us here at the St. Francis Tulsa Tough, and we are now 13 minutes into our pro women's race here tonight, the second stage of racing here at the FC Tulsa Arts District Criterium. Altogether, we've had some preams. We have, and yet our pace has stayed together a bit, and we are already starting to see a few riders suffering from the pace at the back as they come by us here off camera. As the front of the race now starting to come close to us, Laurel Rathman starting to casually be off the front, it looks like.
Yeah, with the kind of quiet seated acceleration. Nobody from the back seems to be that interested to chase, except for this one Kingdom Elite rider.
Here we go. So Rathman, this is an interesting tactic to me.
That's not Kingdom Elite.
We'll take an eye on that when they come by us here to make sure we get that right ID as they come by. We'll be able to see that number. But why do you think Legion of Los Angeles is using one of their three in this way right now?
Yeah, just put pressure on the other teams. Techers is chasing. It's going to put Sinska on the back foot. And Laurel is just so strong that she's going to be able to really make more than one team chase to bring her back. Again, this allows Holly and Kendall to just not take ownership. Like we heard Kendall say, is they were going to be very attentive. They weren't going to get caught on the back foot again, and this is definitely ensures not getting caught on the back foot in any scenario that could possibly break out.
So just real quick for my benefit, would this be a scenario like what Jumbo Visma did at the Giro a few days ago, where they put Wout in the break to then help their finisher later on, kind of thing? So is this something where like Laurel can now control the brake dynamic and intentionally bring it back together, or just be there for Kendall late? What's the deal?
No, Laurel just wants to drive and get that breakout as big as it can go. Again, make the other teams chase as long as possible. It's an unlikely, but it is a plausible scenario that if Laurel and this other rider establish a pretty solid gap, that another group could go across, and therefore Kendall and or Holly should be there for it. So, those gals will have a teammate up the road to go across to. But it's mostly, I think, to just get the other teams to work. Fearless Femme has to do a turn. Lauren Stevens has to do a turn. Fount has to do work. Sinsica has to do work. So it's just kind of, one of these things that death by 1,000 cuts is what Laurel's trying to do to these other teams. And just, chip away at the other riders that are could be doing the lead out in the finale.
So Aline Seitz is 96, but I don't know.
Is that 96?
Where's it 69 with Sam Quijano? Internet, we need your help. Who's with Laurel? Because it looks like a 69 or a 96. It's hard to tell from our vantage point. Help us out with this ID. We can see you on the YouTube comments. So give us a shout and let us know who is riding with Laurel right now. We want to make sure that they are recognized and get that team some cred so that those sponsors keep coming back and supporting all things bike racing. So Laurel Alfman of Legion of Los Angeles right now. And we're calling that 96 Aline Seitz. So our start sheet is showing Aline Seitz of Butcher Box. 9-0.
Emily Herfoss.
Okay, there we go. Emily Herfoss. How about that?
From Australia.
So Emily Herfoss from Australia has been identified. YouTube, we beat you to it. Too bad. Next round is on you. So Herfoss is going to be up there with Rathbun. What do we think about Herfoss?
Never heard of her. Not a familiar name. Don't know if she's a part of the younger rider, part of the track program down there, or just a young rider coming out here with some of the other Australians that are here.
All right, so Internet, we're going to rely on you a little bit. Emily Herfoss from Australia, help us out. What she won, what she done, and we'll start to give her some cred where credit is due. Now bridging across to it, you're going to start to see Nicole LaRue from the Aegis Cycling Foundation, and it looks like there may be just too many people welding this thing back together, and I think that will be the end of that first initial separation.
Yeah, so this is a good time for a counterattack from a rider that was able to kind of follow wheels efficiently, save some energy. But that was a pretty big chase from a majority of the group. So we should be seeing a counterattack ASAP. If it kind of goes anything further than the downhill, the final corner, it's kind of too much of a rest and take advantage of all that high set pace. And then there is Aline Seitz on the right side in that red jersey, the white helmet, moving up for Butcherbucks. Swiss rider. Believe she's an Olympian. Rides the Madison endurance rider. So very good in her own right. But I think this is one of her first trips to the U.S. to race the crits.
Well, speaking of Olympians making their first trip to the U.S. to race crits, it's going to be our Techers riders on the front. Both of them, this is their first time racing in the U.S., and nice to have them. This is going to be the Techers program on the front. Take a look at this one. I think that is Meg, but we'll get some eyes on the front of the bike race here momentarily. Meanwhile, we've got our FPV drone. And then Alexi Costa, your Trinidad and Tobago national champion, in that distinctive Blazers kit. And Costa now coming through. Costa also a rider that races on the velodrome. And then Grace Arlinson of Automatic racing now also back to the front. Arlinson having a fantastic ride last night. Unfortunately, couldn't quite get to the finish line, but Arlinson, really a standout ride for her. She should be very proud of that. Sounds like we got a preem going because $200 preem now being called. $200 preem.
Yes, this is definitely going to ramp up the pace. There's going to be, Olivia Cummins right there behind Aline Seitz from Butcher Box. So she's won one preem already today, and kind of following that thing of just out here to win some preems and get some money.
Aline is an Olympian, so yes. So you got that one right. Nicely done. And we got $200 cash preem. Let's see how that's going to affect our overall here for our pro women's race here at the second day of racing here at the St. Francis Tulsa Tough. This is the FC Arts District Criterium. Now, as we're coming up past Sound Pony right now, it might look like it's a little bit of a reprieve, but here's that lift. It looks like Holly Breck from Legion of Los Angeles potentially coming up from through. I think that is Holly. Yep. So Holly's got a little bit of daylight between herself. So Legion clearly proving that they're here to sort of shift the tone tonight compared to last night. Yeah,
and it's going to keep all the other teams on their toes, right? Like Fount's going to have to come up and chase. Sinska's going to come out to chase. So everybody with, kind of more than 3 riders, 4 riders are going to have to follow Holly and Laurel when they decide to move.
Let's see if Holly can hold this off, though, because she does have Fount cycling right behind her. Now Fount going to pull through. CCB also up there. CCB has strength in numbers and very strong squad, being backed by Cassie Hickey, who got 3rd last night. Nice to see her sprint to there. Let's see who gets this $200 preem on the line. And he also looks like Olivia Cummins coming up on the outside, and Olivia going to go 2 for 2 on our preems here tonight. Virginia Blue Ridge 2028 confirmed, and $200 more going to Olivia Cummins and Riley McMullen. $700 now in the pockets of Virginia Blue Ridge 2028, courtesy of Olivia Cummins. So real shift in tone for Olivia tonight, right? Last night, a little bit of a shock perhaps to her, but now she's really right back at it. $700 deep right now.
Yeah, this is the right way to bounce back from an off day, a bad day, or just kind of recognizing, hey, maybe I don't have the form for the finish, but I can still be very productive for herself, for her team, and for her teammates. By racing the way she's racing. It's a really good way to keep the momentum forward, into the, still plenty of racing left this season. So really professional job getting her head back in the game, not letting yesterday get to her in any capacity, and just racing forward.
Town cycling on the front with Andrea Sear. Dr. Sear having won some jerseys in the ACC competitions in the past, and she is currently just keeping herself protected and waiting for a little bit of a pivot around, and that's going to be CCB. Now start to look through our FPV drone perspective as we come around. You can see Erica Carney there in the pink shorts on the right-hand side, moving herself up, just sort of staying clear of the washing machine effect. And then you can see in the middle of the field, we've got Legion hanging out, Blazers hanging out, the Kingdom Riders hanging out, keeping themselves safe at this point in time, because now 23 minutes in, we're now getting into the moment where we're going to pivot into the second third of the race. I think I'm starting to see a different dynamic play out here tonight compared to last night. Last night we saw a very excited group, and not that there's no excitement here right now, but I think the fatigue from last night, there was a big effort, right, from everybody all around from this race last night. And now we're starting to see the fatigue of our field set in. The CCB trying to take some control. So Niska on the right side with Chloe Patrick. Patrick, again, such a phenomenal ride last night. She and the team should be very proud of all that effort that she did. I mean, Chloe Patrick really changed the race last night completely.
Yeah, absolutely. But getting back to what you said about the dynamic of today's race, it's not that there's, I think, a lot of fatigue. I just think there's a lot more people being very attentive, right? They're locked in, they're focused, and it's not that they weren't yesterday, but I think it kind of caught the group off guard, kind of how traditionally the first day plays out. We've never really seen a breakaway establish that much of a gap, have that much potential going into it. And so now everybody's pretty much locked in saying, if that's going to happen again, I want to be a part of it. Or, hey, we can't let that get away from us and be so much work at the finale and cost us, a lead-out rider or two, something like that.
And now we're seeing Fearless Femme presented by Robertet on the front with Bryony Botha, their New Zealand rider she has a silver medal from Paris, and then also their standout rider from that program was Kowski, I believe. She did a really fantastic job covering. So Erica Werski tonight, number 29, different number than last night. Werski having a very strong night last night, really shutting down a lot of the chases that were taking place behind that were trying to catch Botha and Arlinson when they were away. Werski having really a standout MVP teammate ride, but nevertheless Odette Lynch from their program able to step up and get herself into the final results as well. So Fearless Femme could be one to watch here if they keep their squad together and really leverage the strength of their lead out, because they also have Paula Munoz, a very experienced rider. $200 pream though now coming up 25 minutes in. We're going to ring that bell. $200 cash pream. Or $300 cash pream. Let's go.
I'm about to kid up.
Sweat on the front right now. Everybody wants this. So what do you think? You think Olivia's going to jump out and get the $300? Go $1,000 deep already?
Yeah, but this is a big attack from number 54,
Margie. So Margie Bemis, a very strong rider. She's actually one of the assistant coaches at Marion University. She has also done quite well for herself. She raced in Europe, I believe, last year. I'm sure Hoop can help me out with that one. But Margie, very strong rider. She's also won some races, won a race that I put on the East Coast, the Eastern Criterium. She won that race a few years ago. So Margie, definitely one to watch. She can definitely hold this effort, I believe, at least for the $300 premium.
Yeah, just going this early kind of catch the rest of the group off guard and just allows her to get those few extra seconds that she's going to be able to need to finish it off. And yeah, catching, Olivia's not going to go this long for the money. Nobody else really is. So she did a really good job with the timing of this effort. So she's probably got some information from the radio on how big the gap already is, and she should just start thinking about, kind of locking into a hard tempo, hard pace to establish this gap, and not just sit up after the preem.
Bemis coming through. Bemis going to get herself $300. Let's see if she can get all of it. She will. She will get $300 for LA Sweat here. Margie Bemis, nice ride here to get this $300. Nice ride here. Now, what's going to be the counterpoint here? Because off camera, we just saw Paula Munoz coming off the back of the race. So big shift there. Usually Munoz is easily able to at least ride the pack, but Munoz potentially out unless she's going to the pit and we're unaware of it. This race dynamic is shifting, and I think that this race is certainly playing out to be start to ratchet up quite a bit. Will this be a moment where we think that Margie will start to draw out a potential separation, or do we think that the field will continue to be attentive, as you were saying earlier, and bring this all back?
I think the most experienced riders are going to be patient, see if Marge, has the ability to hold this and establish this gap, something to bridge to, or, they're going to be looking to see if that gap, when they're riding just a strong tempo, if it's going to kind of go out or come back. Because really, you don't want to try to bridge to a rider that's already heavily fatigued and going to come back anyways. It's kind of a wasted effort, so to speak. Or is she just going to be a really strong rider that's going to be really stable and somebody that's going to ride once you get there? So experienced riders are going to say, let's let this just sit for a couple laps, see how strong this rider is, and if it's going to be kind of worth that effort to go across, or say, hey, she's going to come back naturally just with how hard the course is.
I got a question from the YouTube to you, Daniel, asking about whether or not the current race dynamic at about 30 minutes in is enough to sort of stifle a lead out potential for Kendall. And is there any way that a different team could sort of upset the rhythm of a rider like Kendall Ryan?
It's going to take a full team that's really, really organized, right? So the biggest team, or a couple of biggest teams, are really going to have to put the whole team on the front, really get their timing right, where it just, when they get on the front, it's just a big acceleration. It doesn't just get to a hard tempo and set, because it'll allow Kendall. She's so good. She'll find a place to float. She'll find a place to recover and take advantage of it. So if and when a team goes to the front, it needs to be the whole team, and it just needs to be turn and burn super, super fast, and ideally catch Kendall out of position and get some riders in between her and the back of that team's lead out, or that team sprinter.
Love to hear it. All right, Daniel Holloway giving the lowdown on that one. Meanwhile, back on course, Grace Arlenson is taking up the chase at the front with Andrea Sear right behind for Fount Cycling, because they're going to try to reel in Margie. And there you see Andrea on the front right now with Arletson's second wheel, and it's going to be Worski from third wheel right there. And thanks to the YouTube comments, Worski has a history she was on DNA Pro Cycling prior to this. So
nice.
Big thanks to that for your help out there.
And this is about the same time last night, 30 minutes in, that Grace Arlenson and Byrony found themselves off the front. So it's enough time for some fatigue to kind of accumulate. Most people kind of want to take a deep breath, so we could potentially expect something to go if riders start to get really, really aggressive.
And just a question for you about, and just to set up the sort of the understanding of what we see on this, we have a headwind on the downhill, but it feels like a tailwind through the finish. Is that correct? Because the speeds that we're seeing through 1 into 2, from front of race to back to race, they're through both 1 and 2, indicating very high speed.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a breeze. I wouldn't say it's a direct, consistent tailwind. It's just kind of maybe how stuff is funneling here through the buildings. But again, from my race earlier, it's very much the same speed from 1 to 2 as it was from 5 to 6. That's how much the headwind is, how strong the headwind is on the hill, that even on the flat road, it's about the same speed as the downhill. When you're just riding, of course.
This is Canadian Alex Oberon on the front. Alex came here with some big ambitions. We talked to her at Ride with the Pros the other night, and she was very keen on today. Now, she initially said tomorrow, and I said, Alex, I've heard that a lot today. And she's like, well, Saturday then. Let's go for Saturday. So Alex looking to at least set some tempo here and try to whittle down the strength of sprinters. And here's a nice counterattack by Worski as they come up off of the effort of Alex Obrand. All right, we're going to jump into the para podium here. Big shout out. So on the right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see the podium for our para H1 athletes. We did a full para race here on the course just before the pro women's race. So you can actually go back onto our YouTube and watch that whole thing. Ryan Penny, taking the win. Casey Faulkner in second, and David Randall in third. So congratulations to those three for their wins here at the FC Tulsa Arts District Criterium here at the St. Francis Tulsa Tough. Our pro women now coming into 32, or let's call it 33 minutes worth of racing. There's some big moves here, big counter moves. Tonight we haven't seen so much from KRT QRT. Looking through my sheet here. $200 preem though. Let's get right back in it. So now $1,200 worth of preems. You were in the wrong race today, my man.
Yeah, I was.
So $200 preem now being rung here. Some big money at our FC Tulsa night, and interesting characters at the back of the field, even with Josie Knight looking like she's struggling a wee bit, starting to gap off that wheel.
And we can kind of see, looking at the back of the field, some riders that are back there, the body language gaps opening. It's like the race, the fatigue is starting to accumulate, and I think that might have been Boutine.
Yeah.
That is out, and I mean, she's such a good rider, and if she's kind of coming out halfway through the race, that's kind of the wear and tear of this on and off pace that's been happening.
Yeah, Andrea Boutine of Fountain Cycling Guild coming off the back right now. Very indicative of just
That's Lauren Stevens putting in a massive dig up the top of the hill, across the top. And I think this is, she's setting herself up, I think, for some money, but this is a rider that can roll right through that preem, carry the momentum.
I mean, look what she did last night, man. Like,
yeah.
She took 16 seconds out in one lap.
Yeah.
That break.
Yeah.
Like, Stevens.
Ooh, crash on the left side at the top.
All right. So riders down on the backside, on the left side of the stream. We'll see who is involved in that. Racing is still live, though. There's plenty of room and plenty of time for those riders to get themselves up. Meanwhile, Lauren Stevens has a clear gap over the rest of the field. Let's see if she can hold it all the way to the line. She's on the hoods. We use a big lift from the behind, though, to try and get onto that wheel into the draft. If they can get there, the foreshortening of the lens is tough to see. Here's a big lift. Oh, and it's going to be a throw at the line. Oh, wow. Stevens missed it out. And that's Ricardo, I believe, from KRT-QRT. That is exactly who I was looking at. We're going to take a look at that Gina Ricardo getting that preem. We're going to take a look at the crash, though, real quick, thanks to Quick Trips, our replay squad.
Oh, and that biker rider, yeah, just gets a little caught out to find the,
Yeah, hard to see here, but the bikers rider just getting a little caught out. But they should have some time to get themselves back into the mix. And then the preem, though, that played out, nice lift. I was actually looking for Gina Ricardo on the sheet before we rang that preem bell because she was so active last night. And Ricardo was able to just sort of take a run at the wheel of Lauren Stevens, and then make that slingshot pass in. Get that $200 preem.
That's a really good example of how the headwind on the downhill can really affect a solo rider, right? Lauren did the big attack up the hill, and by the time she's getting halfway or 50 meters down to that corner, that fatigue had accumulated enough that she wasn't able to kind of lift coming out of that corner. She was, could only hold a certain pace, where Ricardo was able to kind of follow wheels, take the run, do a really good last corner, and then take a run and use a slingshot into Lauren to take that preem. So a very good example of how you can, win this race by leaving a little bit of space and taking a run at the wheel.
So we are going to neutralize this race, apparently. So we're going to stop the riders at the start-finish line, is what I'm being told.
We're going to do a rolling neutral.
It's unclear. So they are going to hold them. I can see the officials at the start-finish line, so we are going to neutralize. And course is going to be cleared up at the top, it sounds like. So race neutralization right now for our pro women's Criterium here at the FC Tulsa Arts District Criterium. Here on the second night of racing at St. Francis Tulsa Top.
That's right at 11 laps to go. So,
okay.
Yeah, this really resets the race.
Completely.
It allows a lot of people to kind of recover. All their heart rate's going to drop. I mean, what does happen in this scenario is they've been racing for 40 minutes, body heat is up, and now they've just stopped. You're not getting that evaporative cooling. You're not getting the air across the skin.
Yep.
So luckily, most of the gals are in the shade. That's going to help just a teeny bit, but it doesn't really feel good when you do that hard of racing and then just come to a stop. It's going to feel the heat. Is going to feel quite oppressive to just sit there. So,
although at least we're not looking at 110 again.
Very true. But to them, it's going to feel that hot because they've just been racing for 40 minutes.
Right. Like as soon as you have that moment in the break where you just really feel the sweat like coming down, it's mentally just such a break too, because you're like, oh no, my core is rising. Like all these things start going through your head as an athlete, and then you start to worry about the heaviness of the legs and all that stuff. The restart you're worried about. So there's a few factors here. It looks like in their pit, their DCC perhaps getting themselves sorted. So riders will be able to go to the neutral pit to get themselves sorted and make sure that their equipment is okay. Erica Carney also getting herself sorted out in the neutral pit. And thank you guys for joining us here tonight. We're going to be we're in the Zico broadcast booth here tonight. I'm Gabe Lloyd, and that's Daniel Holloway. We are calling the shots for you guys here tonight. Thank you guys for helping us out on our YouTube, and of course our friends from around the country tuning in and helping us out. Right now we are in a race neutralization of our women's Pro 1-2 race, and we're going to make sure that everybody is safe and accounted for. Rider safety, of course, the top priority of any bike race that happens in America. And so right now our riders queued up on the start-finish line once we get the all clear from our USA Cycling officials. But we only have 11 laps remaining. Daniel was just talking about how this is really a complete reset of this race. All that cumulative fatigue in legs of the riders has a chance to reset, flush out. Do you think that this plays in favor for Ryan to repeat her win here from last year?
I don't think it for a rider of her level, it doesn't really affect her too much. What hurts her is that some of the domestiques get some time to rest, that were chasing early, attacking early. It allows those riders to kind of recover and get a second chance to, again, add to a lead out, whereas a team that had 6 used 2.5 riders, at this point they would have kind of been lost. Now they get to be back in the game and impact and save more energy for those finishers. So that's how it affects a rider like Kendall, is that teams kind of get back to full strength rather than those riders kind of disappearing from the race because of the workload that they put in.
Got it. All right, we're looking at 10 laps now to go. So we're going to restart this race with 10 laps remaining for our FC Tulsa Arts District Criterium. Meg Barker put herself right up on the front initially, but I'm sensing a little bit of a shift already. We're going to maybe take a look at who is going to really drive this pace, but the speed, it appears to be just a shift initially off the front, but we're now going to see Alex Obran from the Golden State Blazers on the front right now, looking down through, and she sees Meg Barker from Great Britain of Techers program right behind in that draft, and we're going to start to see the shape of the field become pointy at the front. Fearless Femme, presented by Robert also getting themselves up into that mix as we restart this race with 10 laps remaining, just 10 laps to go. This is very little time for these professional women. A lot of things can happen, but notably we have a very full course still. We have had some notable riders find themselves out of contention. Paolo Munoz, unfortunately, out of this race. Andrea Boutin also coming off due to pace. But here we are. We got a very strong field here, and that's a cool thing about St. Francis Tulsa Tough as an Omnium. It is the Super Bowl of Criterium racing, and everybody wants to be here, so they have no problem filling up the race course with our riders. It looks like Erica Carney is going to be pushed in from the field. Oh, wow. Erica's pushing the... wow. Erica loves to push.
Yeah, that's just her. Unfortunately, that DCC rider was heavily affected. She should just jam the brakes, go back, and be like, you're standing in my way. It's... Be clear about the process. That rider, I highly doubt is going to find herself back in this race. Erica is just kind of latching on, going through corner 1. Definitely the veteran of the rider, again, pushing the limits of when to be released, not end up at the back. But
we saw that last night with Seba pushing in Clever Martinez in that pro men's race, right? There was this very clear, get in there, get forward, because they sort of understand too that the speed that they're traveling when they enter into the race is going to sort of feather them into sort of mid-pack. But I think the rules that the officials are trying to enforce right now is that you go into the back of the field.
Yeah, you should be placed at the back. And it's to prevent riders trying to take advantage of that is make a bullpen, right? Don't be so open air, a gate, if you will, that you can't game the system, don't leave. So, the officials could help by making them, getting some resources to create a space to, not have riders push the limits or take advantage of the situation. And then it's clear for everybody, the rider can't go early because there's just a hard stop. When the flag goes up, you can go. There's not so much space to kind of get around it.
Sounds like a cool idea. We'll see. We can do those little freeway lights like they do in LA too, or you just can't go until you're given the all clear for the on ramps. Arlenson on the front right now. And this is going to be a butcher box rider now going to try and enter from the pit. Look, he just needs a flag in his hand.
Yeah. Now, bizarre.
But then they just let that person go.
As soon as the first person goes. So,
okay.
I mean, she does end up kind of at the back. But if that was a rider like Erica Carney in her ability, she would have been like bang top 10.
Yeah.
But it's, again, it should be the same for everybody in every circumstance. Consistency is key. Rather than being different every time. But
all right,
I'd really love CCB to, like, with 8 to go, line up. Just get all riders together, find your space. Doesn't mean you have to go super hard, but just collect as a team. They've got the numbers to do it. It would set the tone. It would keep whoever their sprinter is, or final two people, together in a safe spot. They're just kind of scattered a little too much at this point. But, they have one rider on the front. The rest of the team should really just go collect up there, just so they can protect each other, not have to deal with too much fighting or anything like that.
Yeah, because this course length, what's the course length? Do you remember?
I don't know the distance, but let's say, like, in the earlier race, laps were like a minute 40.
Okay.
Something like that, a minute 30.
Yeah, right, so we're within a few, with
12 minutes.
12 minutes of racing left. So yeah, CCB get to the front to start like controlling and start to really set tempo. But it sounds like over radio that we are going to start to change this dynamic again. They're going to ring the bell for a $500 preem. Wow. Do you think the $500 preem is going to set a dynamic shift up for anything?
The bigger teams probably aren't going to go for it. Maybe Olivia Cummins, Rodrigo, some individuals are going to go. But what everybody has to look out for is the counterattack.
Yeah.
Lauren Stevens is a rider that could take really good advantage of this big momentum, this high speed lift for the preem, and counterattack it with, what would be six to go. And that is definitely a distance that if she gets a gap and the field hesitates because nobody wants to commit that early, could be a danger situation. But if Lauren goes with a rider like Grace, who we see is very strong, that could put a lot of people on notice. But at that point, at 6 to go is all in. There's no pacing. It's just you kind of have to say it's all in or nothing.
Oh, so here we go. So that bell has been rung. Garlandson on the front. Barker is there. Bemis is there. I believe that's going to be Worski also up there, and then your front four. Fount looks to be patrolling the front right now, and I see some Blazers and Legion of Los Angeles jerseys also patrolling up near the front. I'm going to get kind of an overhead look here as we see, though, we're 3 wide as we make this right-hand turn to start to climb up past Sound Pony, past the Arts building. And we'll see with this, if this $500 is going to really shift. Will there be a big lift or a counter move to create a separation and give themselves an opportunity? The shadows really shifting here and making it a bit of a challenge to identify even the color of the riders as we sort of make this right-hand turn. Looking for the front of our race, though, as we are looking at a preem lap with $500 to go. And we've got now a big ride with a little bit of a gap 4 wheels back as we're going to start to see.
It's Herfoss with Rodrigo.
Okay.
Some of this Australian wink, nod going on. That's Aline Seitz, I believe, 4th wheel. It's hard to tell exactly who the 3rd rider is at the moment, but 29.
So 29 would be Worski.
Okay,
so
there you go.
out of Fearless Femme. But this is going to be Gina Ricardo now making the lift for KRT QRT with that red jersey. As she lifts up, she's going to try and get $500. She's already gotten one preem tonight. It looks like she's going to get a second one. $500 for Gina Ricardo of KRT QRT, another Australian rider, showing us what she's got. She got preems last night. This is her second preem tonight. And Ricardo now showing us what she's got. She was a rider that we have our eyes on for our East and Somerville weekend 2 weeks ago. And then she raced well at the Armed Forces Cycling Classic last week, and now here at the cap of the 3-week block of racing, finishing out here at the Super Bowl of Criteriums of the St. Francis Tulsa Tough. Ricardo bringing that form home. She's getting these preems and representing a very cool program, KRT QRT Racing, which is both East Coast and West Coast.
So 2 things to know. Fearless Femme has all 4 riders at the front, but I believe Grace Arlenson just launched a really good, well-timed counter move, bringing out Laurel Rathbun and one of the CCB riders. Lauren Stevens is there to cover it with a teammate on the wheel, and LaSuette there covering it up. But we'll see again with the lens how far this out. We don't know exactly how big gaps are going.
There we go. That's Arlinson, though. So remember, Arlinson has no teammates. Arlinson is solo here, and she's been very proactive. I mean, obviously last night, being off the front for more than half the race, she was super proactive, and that made sense. Now she has no help out here. So what's her strategy as a solo rider in the front of the Legion train?
She's just got to keep trying to break the elastic. I mean, obviously, Laura was on to Grace right away. They obviously missed her yesterday, and they weren't going to allow that mistake to happen twice. So clearly marked, but Grace, I think, just has to not get frustrated, not get discouraged, but just keep putting in big digs and see if that, whatever potential mixture works out from that effort, it might be the right thing that works out. But she's not one to want to take it to the field sprint, so she's just kind of keep pressing on, keep trying. If not, she's just going to kind of get washed back in the finish. But you can see that.
But this is a big reset right now, right?
I mean, it's spread across the road completely. With no team really wants to take it up with 5 to go. But Fearless Femme has a couple riders. Andrea Sear moving up next to Erica Carney. But again, no full team completely at the front. It's just twosies, threesies. I mean, we can see the pink helmets of the CCB team. They're there, but just not quite. They need to be the whole unit at front. It doesn't mean that they have to go ride 60K an hour, but at least place your team on the front.
Yep.
Keep your sprinter out of the mess. Keep them from doing any kind of micro accelerations or needing to fight with any other rider or teams out there.
We like seeing this drone shot from above. It helps us understand sort of the field dynamic that's occurring as we see the field with one or two from Fearless Femme really starting to try and take control. Worski's been a great teammate for this program. I believe Botha would be your other rider, and therefore you're going to see Odette Lynch. Last we saw, Paulo Munoz was not in the race any longer. That may not. We will get some verification on that, but that is going to be Worski and Botha at the front of the field. Now, Botha has a Olympic silver medal from Paris in the team pursuit for New Zealand, and that pursuit discipline it's time trial, right? It's a time trial on the velodrome, and so she's got that. Worski, having raced for DNA Pro Cycling in the past and has a very strong pedigree, she will be able to also help set tempo. But is this a little too early to start setting that tempo? It's weird, right? We got like what, 8 to 9 minutes of racing left.
It's again, if you do it very craftily, you don't have to keep the pace hard. You can find a lot of, like on this course, there's a lot of space to rest between corners, and again, yeah, you can be at the front and not be spending a ton of energy if you're a crafty rider. Know where to find all the rest. You don't. If you're the first rider out of the corner, you get to dictate the pace. You get to dictate how fast the acceleration is, and all she's doing is protecting her teammate, even though it's 5 to go.
Siniska now finding themselves up to the front and helping out with the pace setting. Of course, they're going to be trying to help out some of their finishers with Alexis Magner. Magner currently second in the Omnium standings behind her sister, Kendall Ryan. They also have Chloe Patrick up there that can definitely help out. But I think CCB should also start to put themselves up there. I mean, Michaela McPherson is a fierce finisher. And, of course, Cassie Hickey, your U23 Criterium national champion. She got third last night in a strong sprint. I believe that the CCB could start to get themselves up into this mix as well. But they're midfield right now.
Yeah, Fountain needs to put a rider or a couple riders up there. Again, this is one of those things where Fearless Femme and Siniska both have riders up there, and they're sharing that workload, and it just allows their sprinters to kind of anchor down behind the train and kind of tell the other teams, like, hey, this is our spot because our team is working. If you want some respect up here, if you want some space, put a rider, put two riders up there, and we won't fight you as hard. But the teams that are setting the tone, are saying, hey, this is our space. We have the right to be here without being bothered too much. It's the other jobs. it's the job of the other teams to fully come around or place somebody in that rotation to keep the pace high.
Yep.
So there's draft and less fighting going on.
Now coming into 4 laps to go, we're going to start to see a little bit of of course, acceleration and pace, but who is driving that pace, and will it be a cohesive unit here? 3 laps to go, excuse me, so 3 laps remaining in our FC Tulsa Arts District Criterium. This is the second night of racing here at the St. Francis Tulsa Tough, and it's going to be Alexi Costa on the front for Golden State Blazers, your Trinidad and Tobago national champion, trying to lift, and I think Alex Obrand is going to be their protected rider. Now, Costa has to manage this effort. She can't go full on right now, but she needs to contribute to this pace setting, because Obrand is going to benefit from having higher pace at the front so that she doesn't get swarmed. But you can start to see other riders like number 80 in there. That's going to be Barker of the Techers program. Definitely a good sprinter. Meg Barker finishing on the podium at Somerville just a few weeks ago, so she definitely can surf these larger criteriums. But tonight, a little bit of a shift. Now here comes Chloe Patrick on the right side of the screen. Bryony Balfa in that red helmet at the front, looking left and right for Fearless Femme, presented by Roberte. A little bit of confusion, it seems, as to who is going to take up the responsibility, because they know exactly how long their leadouts can last. Here comes CCB with Michaela McPherson on the front, number 21, and right behind her, number 20, is going to be Cassie Hickey. So McPherson now doing the shepherding around to try and keep Hickey up near the front. We're going to be coming into 2 laps to go. This is going to be within about 4 minutes of race time. But Erica Carney also now patrolling. What are you seeing, Daniel?
I believe 87 is Riley McMullen. So first time we've kind of noted her to be floating around the top 5, top 10 there. This is a really good sprint for her if she finds a clean run to the finish. But yeah, now we see Sinska coming to the front to protect Alexis Ryan, but Fearless Femme has really decided to take control. But again, Alexis has told one of her teammates, hey, just go up there, set a hard tempo. I need that ability to, sit in, find the back of the train, and that's my spot, because I've got a teammate working up there. 2 laps to go now, and Siniska on the front with Fearless Femme, presented by Roberte fighting, and now CCB presented by Levine Law Group, trying to get themselves into that lineup with Butcher Box, it seems like, with Aline Seitz trying to get herself into that mix. So we're going to see nice fighting for wheels. You can see just in 5 wheels back, you've got shoulder-to-shoulder racing there, trying to fight for those positions. Love to see this perspective of the race right now, because you can really tell how hard and how fast they're going, and who's also carrying speed through turns as they start to lift up past Sound Pony. Yeah, Alexis really needs another teammate with her. Ideally, Chloe Patrick, who has really good acceleration. But as we see, Alexis kind of getting boxed in and swarmed a little bit.
Yeah.
She needs a teammate to do that effort and not have her do it. That's just taking a little bit out of her legs. But now you see Kendall, you see Legion on the right side, Holly Breck, Laurel Rathbun with Kendall on the wheel, getting shepherded around. Even with 2 laps to go, they're keeping a really cool head to not too far forward too early, but also not getting swarmed in any way. Bryony Balfa on the front right now for Fearless Femme, presented by Roberte, going to try and set up Odette Lynch for a win. They're going to be coming into 1 to go here. They may have done this a little too early, though. You can see them first and second wheel. Look at those stars on the shoulders there of Kendall Ryan. She is sitting about 11 to 12 wheels back. She's got Aline Seitz of the UTC Butcher Box on the shoulder there as they start to wind into this final 1 to go. As we start to lift up, this is really where it starts to matter. What is going to happen here, Daniel? What's the dynamic? Because here comes Margie Bemis on the right-hand side. There needs to be a big acceleration to this corner so you don't get swarmed if you're at the front. But we see Lauren Stevens come underneath with a teammate on the wheel. And again, she is a rider that can take this all the way to the, basically the bottom corner for a teammate. She's really experienced, knows how to ramp the pace correctly from corner to corner, not just be a big thing and wear herself out. So we're really going to see what happens, but you could see a fight for that wheel.
Big fight.
As they're just kind of going shoulder to shoulder, as Byrony is playing no games and making sure her teammate is in the front
Brownie's being fierce right now. She's lifting up. She's not letting anything go. And that was Lauren Stevens right in front of Nicola Rue. And yet that's starting to fall apart. Here we come on the right-hand side as we start to lift up, and we're challenging up on the right shoulder. And we now have a new rider on the front of the field as we come around. It's going to be Holly Breck of Legion of Los Angeles. Kendall is
5 wheels back.
5 wheels
on
back.
the wheel.
And so 5 wheels back is going to be Kendall Ryan. That's a good spot for her, but she needs to move up. Maybe just a smidge, but maybe not. She is the queen of crits. She knows exactly how to pull this off. Breck pulls off, and Botha now takes over with Odette Lynch on the wheel. But now look at the stars on the shoulders in 4th position behind Alexis Magner. Magner now lifts. Magner now is going to try and lead out, and there comes Kendall Ryan coming into this final turn. Magner's going to lead through the final turn on the inside. There is going to be the lift on the right side. Big sprint out of the corner by Alexis Magner. Odette Lynch is trying to get there, but here comes Kendall Ryan. But Magner's looking strong. Magner's trying to get there. Magner may be able to hold on, and Alexis Magner takes the sprint tonight at the FC Tulsa Arts District Criteria.
What a beautiful move. She timed her acceleration into that final corner just absolutely perfect. It was just enough for her and not for anybody behind her, who happened to be Kendall Ryan, as she went shoulder to shoulder with Riley McMullen through that corner, and not a perfect line, not any ability to carry the same momentum that Alexis did. And that was the biggest difference. Even though Alexis went a little early and Kendall got a chance to run, it was just not enough momentum from behind from Kendall going shoulder to shoulder, whereas Alexis got a super clean run and it and just was able to accelerate at the right time and perfectly carry momentum into the finish. So that's how you do it. That was the rush. She felt that. There was 2 Fearless Femme riders in front of her, and she felt the stall, right? She felt that lag. That's a lack of experience from Fearless Femme, not racing this course, not understanding this dynamic. Their sprinter should have gone just before Alexis did, but they don't have the experience here like Alexis, and she made the perfect move based on years and years of being here, knowing exactly what that's like, and the timing perfect.
Yeah, Magner will now go into the leader's jersey for the St. Francis Tulsa Tough Omnium. After taking the win here tonight, she was second last night. She will now go into the lead. There's Kendall Ryan. She was your winner last night. She's your U.S. national champion. She gets second here tonight to her sister, and which is bittersweet as it stands, but Kendall will be disappointed not to take a win. She's a very competitive rider and fierce in some of those moments, but she is going to go home. And let's take a look, though, back at this sprint. Thanks to Quick Trip for the rollback.
So here we are going down the hill. This is the top 10 riders. Fearless Femme on the right side, but you see Alexis make the perfect move, and Kendall and Riley going shoulder to shoulder. Look, Kendall just has to wait. She wants to go, but she just couldn't take the perfect line to do it like she would prefer. And so,
yeah, and Magner really carried that speed, as you talked about earlier as well. And with that carrying of speed, there's really just not enough time. You see Kendall start to make up a little bit of ground there. Chloe Patrick also unable to come out of the box. Excuse me, that was Riley McMullen, unable to come out of the box and get in front, but though she did get in front of Odette Lynch. So looks unofficially like Alexis Magner, Kendall Ryan, and Riley McMullen finishing in the top 3 here at your FC Tulsa Arts District Criterium.
This sets up a great story for tomorrow. Sister versus sister, tied on points. It doesn't matter about winning. You have to beat your sister.
Yeah.
How do you race that race? You know, they both also want to win. Alexis has won Crybaby Hill before. Kendall has not. She wants that on her resume, as any pro crit racer wants Crybaby. So it's going to be a story to be written. It's going to be very exciting. How much tactics, how much games is going to be played, because hey, I just have to beat this one rider. Obviously, we have to see how the rest played out to see who's third, fourth, what that gap looks like, how much room they have to play, and how much they're just going to mark each other. You know, I don't really care about what's up the road because they're not in the Omnium. I just have to beat you. I'm willing to play this game.
And that could maybe neutralize the race perhaps tomorrow. That could be big shift, but I think Alexis really wants to get race wins. That's the cool thing about the sisters, is that they really like winning, right?
Yep.
They don't necessarily like negative neutralized races. They really do appreciate being able to come in and put their hands in the air, stand on the top step of that podium for the race, and then the Omnium becomes sort of that beneficial moment there. But thanks for joining us here on the Zico broadcast booth here at the St. Francis Tulsa Tough. And thanks again to Quick Trip for putting on our broadcast and bringing Daniel and I out to bring you guys all the action. Thank you guys for tuning in on the YouTube. Be sure to share it out with your friends so that everybody can tune in and see what we do here in Tulsa, Oklahoma for the Super Bowl of Criterium.